Hey, welcome back. Do doctors really know enough about nutrition? Are medical professionals in general getting enough education in this area? I figured that they would be, but this might not be the case. And if this nutrition education is lacking, they might be less effective in helping us, the patients. Well, hopefully the story I'm about to share with you today will be informative on these issues and could help you on your own health journey. Hello, and welcome back to my channel, The Science of Well-Being. In this video, I'd like to tell you my story, the story of how I started on my journey of discovery about health, nutrition, and personal well-being. In my early 20s, I started having a terrible and extremely itchy skin condition that continued over several months without much letup. These super itchy and huge red splotches would cover my entire back, chest, and neck, and it spread to other areas like my arms and legs. They would come and go seemingly without any specific reason, but they began to scare me when they showed up in super visible places like on my face and my fingers, and people in public began to ask me if I was okay, which was very embarrassing. The only pattern I noticed was that I would get a flare-up of splotches and itchiness about 2 hours after eating, almost every time. So I started writing down what I was eating just in case it was helpful to figure out what was causing this. But I really had no idea why this was happening. I realized I needed help to figure out what was really going on. So, like any reasonable person, I made a doctor's appointment. I was hoping that they would figure it out and fix it. I was thinking they would be able to find out the trigger of whatever was causing this. Something I was eating probably seemed to be the answer. I went to the doctor, the appointment, and basically they just took a look, said, yep, those are hives, and asked me how long I'd been having them. They told me that my condition was called chronic urticaria. I think I'm saying that right. This means persistent and recurring hives over a long period of time. They said that they didn't actually know what caused this to happen or how to make them stop. And for reasons unknown, it was possible my symptoms would go away by themselves sometime, or they could stick around forever. Who knows? It's definitely not the answer I wanted to get. They prescribed me a small tube of lotion to put on these hives. The cream, it helped calm down the itching, but it didn't help to prevent them from happening at all. They said I'd have to get another tube each month. It was by prescription. It was kind of expensive. I wasn't super happy about this either. They didn't ask me any questions about my diet, my lifestyle, allergies, or previous conditions. I didn't like the idea of potentially having this problem forever. And the directions on the cream even said that if I'd keep using it, there was side effects, like long-term side effects. So I spoke up and I asked them if what I ate could have any effect on my condition, because this was the connection that I had noticed. And they responded by saying no, that my diet didn't have anything to do with it. They basically told me that the food I ate wouldn't have an effect on my skin this way. This honestly didn't make sense to me at the time, but I didn't say anything else. What I ate would not have even been part of the conversation with my doctor if I had not brought it up. They did at least identify the symptom that I was having so that they could address that, but unfortunately they couldn't pinpoint what was actually causing this problem. They didn't look into the root cause of my problem to try to fix it. They simply diagnosed my symptom and prescribed something to only take care of that part, nothing beyond that. I honestly felt pretty frustrated and let down. I felt like modern medicine could have or should have been able to help me with this. I was confused. I was wondering, did they really expect me to keep using this cream on my hives forever and not question things? It just seemed strange to me. I was determined to figure this problem out myself, because I was miserable and there was no way I wanted to live like this for the rest of my life. So, do you think your doctor is knowledgeable enough about nutrition to help you if you have a related issue? I felt like in my case, it seems obvious to me now that my diet was the problem here. But if something else like this happens and I can't figure it out myself, what am I supposed to do? Why didn't my doctor take into account that the food I ate could be affecting my health like this? Even if your doctor is much better in this area than mine was, we still have a problem with our current healthcare system. On average, only 25 hours out of a whole 4 years of medical school training is dedicated to nutrition education. For medical students, this is basically a drop in the bucket with all the hours of medical school over those years. Hey guys, so I just want to share with you real quick a couple articles here. The ones that I referenced for when I said 25 hours of medical nutrition education. So this one is from the Journal of Biomedical Education, published in 2015. The title of this is called The State of Nutrition Education at U.S. Medical Schools. And the purpose of this survey was to assess the state of nutrition education at U.S. medical schools and to compare it with the recommended instructional targets. So, at the introduction, they state, poor nutrition contributes to the development of most chronic diseases and even some acute conditions. They say that physicians must be prepared for the many diverse situations when solid nutrition knowledge and clinical nutrition skills can improve the likelihood of optimal health outcomes. And they go on to say that they must be able to recognize the importance of nutritional problems and to take the initiative to make nutrition a key part of their daily practice, such as routinely including nutrition assessment during history taking and physical examination. Basically, doctors are our primary care providers, and since nutrition is such an essential part of, general health, well-being, and disease outcomes, it really needs to be essential to their everyday practice. It needs to be included and evaluated for, your best outcomes. Scroll down a little here. Okay, so how much is taught? The medical schools that responded to this survey reported that they provide on average 19 hours of nutritional education. And then over a third of these responding medical schools reported requiring 12 or fewer hours of nutritional instruction, and 12 of these institutions actually required none. So 9% of the schools surveyed actually required no nutritional education at all. And then less than a third of the responding medical schools reported that they provide at least 25 hours of nutrition education across the 4 years. So this means that approximately 25% of all medical students get the minimum required 25 hours. That means up to 75% of all medical students get less than 25 hours. So that's 24.6 get the minimum of 24 hours. So, that's not enough. Unfortunately, it definitely should be more than that. Let's see. Need for better education. Quantity of nutrition education offerings in medical school has shown no sign of improvement during the last decade, according to these surveys. The survey data suggests a steady erosion of nutrition education in these medical schools over time, with the median total nutrition instruction remaining at or under 20 hours since 2000. It is hard to see how a medical school can fulfill its core mission and prepare future physicians with an average of just 19 hours of nutrition instruction. The 25 to 30 hours required nutrition instruction were recommended in 1985. So that was quite a while ago. Think about, so 25 should be considered the minimum estimate. And this was developed at a time when what we knew about nutrition was only a fraction of what it is today. So basically, we know so much more about nutrition these days that it should probably be a whole lot more than just 25 hours. So they go on to explain this a bit. Considering the rapid advancement of nutrition knowledge and the understanding of the role of nutrition in disease prevention and treatment in the last 25 years, it seems likely that if these groups were surveyed again today, the minimum benchmark of 25 hours in our analysis would be much higher. So basically, it should be much higher than 25 hours just because of how much we have learned in the area of nutrition since 1985. Go down a bit here to conclusions. So, to conclude, many U.S. medical schools still fail to prepare future physicians for everyday nutrition challenges in clinical practice. Nutrition is a dominant contributor to most chronic diseases and a key determinant of poor treatment outcomes. It cannot be a realistic expectation for physicians to effectively address obesity, diabetes, other diseases like metabolic syndrome and general malnutrition, and many other conditions, as long as they are not taught during medical school how to recognize and treat the nutritional root causes. So basically, stating again, how can doctors do their best jobs if they're not taking nutrition into account? And they can't take nutrition into account if they're not learning about it. If they're not given the knowledge to address it, they're not going to be able to, leverage it for better outcomes for the patients. So, it is unacceptable that we keep finding the same systemic instructional failures decade after decade. So, when they keep doing these surveys again and again, they keep finding the same results, unfortunately. So let's go to the next article. Okay, here we're at the second article I want to reference. This one is from the National Institutes of Health. This one was published in 2010, so 5 years before the one we just were looking at. This one is called Nutrition Education in U.S. Medical Schools, Latest Update of a National Survey. The purpose of this survey was to quantify the number of required hours of nutrition education at U.S. medical schools and the types of courses in which the instruction was offered, and to compare these results with results from previous surveys. So, results. Of the schools surveyed, only 25% required a dedicated nutrition course. And in 2004, 6 years earlier, only 30% of schools did. So this is reflecting what we saw in the other article, where the most recent number was 19%. So in 2015, it was 19%. In 2010, it was 25%. And in 2004, it was 30%. So like the other article said, unfortunately, we're going backwards. It's slowly eroding from 30% down to 25% and now down to 19%. So as our knowledge about nutrition is actually going up, our education system for medical students is actually giving them less and less nutrition education, which is the wrong way. So to conclude, the amount of nutrition education that medical students receive continues to be inadequate, and it continues to be inadequate today also. So yeah, unfortunately, this is an issue, and we got to be aware of it for ourselves. I'll send you back to the video now. This is a recurring problem that we have in our healthcare system today, where we are simply treating the symptoms we have and not the underlying disease itself. If we could stop or prevent the disease, then there wouldn't be any more symptoms, right? Why is our healthcare system built to address symptoms and not the root cause? This is why some people call it disease care instead of healthcare, because we're so focused purely on symptoms of disease and not actually preventing the disease from happening in the first place. This was my first lesson that we as individuals need to advocate for ourselves and for our own health. We bear the burden of responsibility for our own well-being and health outcomes. Our health system in the U.S. is for profit, and it treats our bodies like separate parts, not as a whole. So sometimes we will have a problem like mine, where we are treating something in one location when it's being caused from another. I'm not saying that doctors are bad or they're out to get you. Modern medicine is amazing and it is essential. There's no way that I want to live in a world where we don't have access to the healthcare that we do have. I am just saying that there are some areas that could be improved. And for now, we each need to be aware of this and for our own health and be informed so that we can do what's best for ourselves and for our own health. Anyways, I decided to figure out my problems myself. I knew there could be a connection to my diet because my symptoms increased after each meal. I was also having digestion issues at the time, bloating, stomach pain, and other things I won't mention. I basically had these things happen to me on a pretty regular basis for as long as I could remember, and I thought that they were relatively normal. This didn't get mentioned in my doctor visit because I was not aware that having these things happen so often was probably not good. At that time, I couldn't know just how unaware I was not only about food, but about nutrition, our food industry, and healthcare systems in general. I didn't know what I ate could have such a profound effect on my life either. Looking back now, it seems so obvious, but you can't know what you don't know until you know it, right? And so I started on an elimination diet. to pinpoint what foods could be triggering my reactions. An elimination diet is one that eliminates all the top allergens: dairy, eggs, fish, peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish, soy, and wheat. For a whole month, I basically only ate plain rice, protein, vegetables, and fruit. By the end of that month, though I was super bored with my food, I felt so much better, I could not believe it. I then began to add one eliminated food back into my diet at a time, waiting 1 week before adding another. This way, I could pinpoint the culprit. In my case, it ended up being 2 culprits. I found out pretty quickly that my body did not like wheat and, to a lesser extent, dairy products. As someone who is used to the standard American diet, or SAD for short, this was bad news, and I had no idea what foods to eat now. I mean, basically every meal I ate had these 2 things in it most of the time. Think of the meals you probably eat: cereal with milk, yogurt and granola, grilled cheese, mac and cheese, quesadillas, pizzas, sandwiches, yeah, you name it. I knew I had to change my diet so that I could start feeling better, but I didn't know the first thing about making a change. I didn't know anything about nutrition or healthy eating. I don't know, did we learn about that in high school? If we did, I don't remember. It was a rough road for me. It took me many years for me to stick to avoiding these 2 things. I thought that I had already proven to myself firsthand that my body didn't like it and I would just do what was right? Well, I was really hoping that by avoiding them for a while, this would fix me, and then I could go back to my regularly scheduled program of ordering a Tupper's pizza and a box of cheese sticks with marinara sauce. But this isn't the way that it works. My body didn't like what I was doing when I ate the things that I knew would hurt me. Yet, I did it anyway. My body continued to try to tell me that something was wrong in the only way that it could, through my symptoms. But I was trying to ignore my problems as much as possible while still eating whatever I wanted, and my health suffered for my taste buds. It is a strange kind of selfishness to be so self-serving and yet hurting yourself at the same time. Kind of seems like it was an addiction for me, honestly. It took me traveling to Japan and eating the food there for me to have the light bulb moment. I told myself I was going to eat whatever I wanted while there because it was potentially a once-in-a-lifetime experience and I didn't want to ruin my time there. Too bad if it made me sick. Well, strangely enough, I didn't get sick. It didn't matter how many pastries or desserts with these things in it I ate, but I felt fine. I was extremely confused and perplexed and actually pretty angry. When I got home, I tried eating all the wheat and dairy containing products like normal, and nope, my symptoms came back with a vengeance. What was going on? I was confused and I turned to the internet and started searching. I learned that there was a lot of crazy things going on with GMOs and things being sprayed on crops. There are lots of things that they use here in the US that are for crops and farmed animals that are illegal in many other countries. So the reasons for my differing reactions could be many. It could be because wheat in the US has a higher content of gluten compared to other countries, or because of remnants of sprays like glyphosate on the grains that you then eat it, or to the additives in things like bread. There's so many things out there I had no idea about, and no one I knew actually knew anything about these things. So I fell down this rabbit hole of discovery about food and food systems. I learned so much about nutrition and how it affects our health, and it helped me to make changes to my diet that I could stick with happily. I also learned there's something that explained my literal addiction to cheese, but I'll save that story for another day because it's kind of long. I now follow a gluten-free vegan diet, and I've never felt more energy, had clearer skin, and best of all, no more hives. I basically never have any bad symptoms like I used to, and this has totally changed my life. My way of eating may seem restrictive to some, but I actually have never had more freedom in the variety of foods that I now eat. As before, I was eating the standard American diet. It was like cheeseburgers and fries. Now I actually know all about vegetables, grains, and beans that I'd never eaten before. And this way of eating has also changed my perspective to be more compassionate towards the suffering of others. I have learned so much over the years. Though it has not been easy, I am grateful. I am grateful that my body told me what I needed to know, that my diet was hurting me. Though it took me a while to figure out what my body was saying, and way longer for me to start listening. My journey on the path to my best health continues every day. I'm currently learning more about something called the whole food plant-based diet. I have been trying to focus on incorporating more whole foods into my diet instead of this processed vegan junk food. There's so much we have to learn about the connection between diet and health. There is a wealth of information out there already today that right now is no time like the present to learn and make a change for a better in your life. I hope that by sharing my story, it will help others to change their lives too. My journey started to improve my health, and it ended up improving much more than just that. It changed my perspective and empathy for the world and every living thing in it. I hope you can learn from my story and change your life too. Your journey is worth it, and it is unique to you. If you liked this video or any of the topics I talked about today, consider subscribing. I hope you will join me in my next video and continue exploring, discussing, and discovering this amazing science-based approach to healthy living with me. I also write articles on these topics. You can check them out in the link in the description box below. See you in the next video. Bye!